believe live streaming has begun. So, folks, ahoy, and welcome back to Talk the Plank, the official podcast of the United States Pirate Party. I am Captain of the United States Pirate Party, Jolly Mitch of the Chicagoland Night, the Illinois Pirate Party, and as always, friend of the show. Today, we have a friend of the show joining us. Ladies and gentlemen, pirates at home, this is Cris Ericson. Cris is running for Congress in Vermont. Cris, I actually, doing my due diligence in your research, you've ran for a few offices a few times. So I'd like to ultimately give you the floor and explain yourself, explain what you do, why you're here, what you advocate for. But to just give a little something, some of the things I saw that you advocate for on your website, vermontparty.com, which is in the description of this video. So anyone who's watching it can see it and support you properly. But some of the things you bring up is calling for the return on investment on taxpayer subsidies, public ownership of patents and copyrights, opposition to the bloody wars, and of course, a longtime marijuana advocate, if I'm reading the room correctly. But Cris, I want to ultimately just hand you the floor and let you introduce yourself to the pirates.
Alrighty, my name's Cris Ericson, and I'm here to start a tax revolution, a tax revolt. And because I've expressed on social media that I want to start a revolution, a tax revolution and a tax revolt, I have been kicked off of Facebook, Instagram, Truth Social, X. I have even been kicked off of YouTube, which is, how do you get kicked off of YouTube? So obviously, because I'm getting kicked off of so many places, what I have to say is really true and really important. Look at your paycheck. Taxes are taken out of your paycheck, and you're forced to, whether your taxes are taken out or you're self-employed and you're forced to pay the IRS, your tax dollars, your hard-earned tax dollars go to the IRS. And then the United States Congress votes to give your hard-earned tax dollars away. Now, they're giving them away to three main places that I want to discuss. First of all, the U.S. Congress is voting to give away your hard-earned tax dollars to around 400 or 500 corporations of their choice, not to all corporations, just to some of them. And they call that subsidies. But subsidies, can you hear the dog barking in the background? I think the Home Depot truck is here with my delivery. All right. So can you still hear me talk over that?
We can still hear you talking.
Wait,
just fine.
let me shut the window. Okay. So the U.S. Congress votes to give your hard-earned tax dollars away to corporations as subsidies. That is free money for the corporations. It's your hard-earned tax dollars you have been deprived of, given to the corporations as subsidies, or as other people say, corporate welfare. They use your money, your hard-earned tax dollars, to make products they sell internationally, worldwide. They make billions and billions in profits, and they don't give you a share. Now, other political parties like the Democrats will say, well, let's tax the corporations more. Let's tax the rich people more. But the Republicans will rebuttal that by saying, not all corporations get subsidies. There's thousands and thousands and thousands of corporations. Not all of them get subsidies. So my plan is to demand a share of profits corporations make using subsidies, which are our hard-earned tax dollars. Now, you can see on the internet that Elon Musk is the richest man in the world, but he has received billions and billions and billions of dollars in subsidies, which are your hard-earned tax dollars. He got them for free. He didn't have to pay you a share. Now, when on earth should we be giving people our hard-earned money so that they can make a profit and not give us a share. That is wrong. That's absolutely 100% wrong. We have to have a tax revolution. We have to revolt. We have to do our revolutionary best and demand a share of profits, or we have to stop subsidies altogether. Now, the second thing that's going on that I want to talk to you about is you pay your taxes to the IRS. They get sucked right out of your paycheck, or you are forced by threat of prison to pay them to the IRS. And then the United States Congress votes to give your hard earned tax dollars to the Pentagon. The Pentagon hands out your hard earned tax dollars to all these different defense corporations, the Lockheed Martins, and so on and so forth, all the different defense corporations. And they use your hard earned money for research, design, and development of new bombs and jets and drones and satellites, which they sell worldwide to our allies. And you heard President Trump talk about that yesterday. President Trump yesterday said, oh, well, China is going to buy 200 new jets or whatever they're buying. Or maybe they're going to buy 700, President Trump said, if they like the first 200. Okay, so the defense contractors are making billions, if not trillions in some cases, of profits. But they made their profits because they did the research, design, and development with your hard earned tax dollars. Now, this falls under the Bayh-Dole Act of 1980. Prior to the Bayh-Dole Act of 1980, which I'm old enough to know about because my father was a patent lawyer. And he started out working for the federal government, and so did his father. I was born in Washington, D.C. And in 1980, the United States Congress changed the patent law. They changed it so that instead of work made for hire, they're just giving their money away for free to corporations as subsidies, to the Pentagon, and to the NIH, National Institute of Health. Before 1980, before they passed the Bayh-Dole Act, the law was work made for hire, so that whoever paid to have the inventions made, whoever paid the researchers so that they would have a patent or a copyright to apply for in the U.S. Patent and Copyright Office, whoever paid for the research, design, and development owned the patents and the copyrights. Since 1980, since they passed the Bayh-Dole Act, the lead researcher owns the patents and the copyrights. And the lead researcher makes a deal with the corporations to produce and distribute the products. So the lead researcher and the corporations become mega wealthy. And that's how the rich get richer and the hardworking people struggle more. So the problem is we need to repeal the Bayh-Dole Act of 1980 because it has completely ripped us off. Now, why would the U.S. Congress want to do this? Because when they make a few corporations rich, they can then identify who the rich ones are and say, you got the taxpayer funding through the Pentagon to the defense corporations. They can say, you got all your research, design, and development paid for by the Pentagon, and that's taxpayer dollars. So what happens now is that the U.S. Congress, the senators and the congressmen hit them up for campaign donations, but the campaign donations are rerouted. They're rerouted through nonprofits and political action committees and cycled and recycled through the nonprofits and political action committees until the money is cleanly laundered and can be deposited in the campaign accounts of the politicians, the incumbent politicians. So the reason we have some in office for 20 or 30 years is they know this, and they're getting the consistent, donations over and over and over again, because they just say, we're not going to vote for your, you know, we're not going to vote for you to get the federal tax dollar money unless we have a guarantee you're going to be putting the money into these, accounts, which will reroute, you know, tax, it's money laundering, I call it, into their campaign accounts. Now that happens with the defense corporations, so they get richer and richer. It also happens with the pharmaceutical corporations. You pay your taxes, they get sucked out of your paycheck, or you're forced to pay them to the IRS, or you're going to go to jail if you don't pay the IRS. And then the US Congress votes to give your money to the NIH, the National Institute of Health, and they hand your money out to research laboratories for research, design, and development of new prescription drugs and medical devices. Now, the lead researcher under the Bayh-Dole Act gets to own the patents and the copyrights. Because remember, for a lot of these prescriptions, they are copyrighted, not just patented. And then the lead researcher makes deals with the pharmaceutical corporations to produce and sell the products worldwide, internationally. They make billions in profits, but you don't get a share. You paid for the research, design, and development, but you don't get a share. This dirty, stinking law, the Bayh-Dole Act of 1980, was created by the US Congress. The US Congress makes the laws. They made this sneaky, stinking law so that they could reap campaign funds over and over and over again. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is the benefits trap. The benefits trap hits up low income people who are struggling to work. A lot of Walmart workers are told, well, why don't you just apply for food stamps? You're not making enough money working at Walmart. Happens with a lot of companies because they have learned this trick that if they only allow you to work for so many hours and they're paying you minimum wage, you're going to qualify for food stamps. But there's a trap. If you make more than, if you qualify for food stamps, you probably also qualify for Medicaid. Qualifying for Medicaid saves you a lot of money. A lot of people are struggling. How do they pay a health insurance premium? If they get Medicaid, they don't have to worry about that. Now, if you earn over a certain number of dollars, you lose your food stamps and you lose your Medicaid. And that's called the benefits trap. And the trap is even worse because in some instances, in some states, you are not allowed to have over $2,000 in your bank account. Because you're not allowed to have over $2,000 in your bank account, you can't pay to have your roof repaired if your roof leaks, because it's going to cost more than that. You can't pay to get a new car if your old car totally breaks down because it rusts right out of the bottom. And believe me, in states like Vermont, you can just have your car just fall out of, just the rust falls right out of the bottom. Okay, so my throat's a little sore right now, so I'm going to stop.
Well, Cris, thank you so much. And let me just say, sore throat or not, I love the song that you're singing. Everything that you've said so far has been like music to my ears. Uh, and
Oh,
especially,
one more. Can
floor
I
is yours.
interrupt before?
Absolutely, the floor is
Because
yours.
I know we're going to a limited time. Okay, this thing about the kids with the cell phones in Massachusetts, they're saying there's a big battle over denying children cell phones. Well, good grief. Kids start in athletes at a very young age, like 8 years old. If they don't start at a very, very early age, they're never going to get to the Olympics. Kids start in music and dancing at a very early age. Otherwise, they're not going to get to the orchestra. They're not going to get a seat in the orchestra if they don't start in music at a very early age. Cell phones in Massachusetts, there's a big battle about limiting children's use of cell phones up to the age of 14. Well, if you deprive a child of a cell phone before the age of 14, then their chance of getting into one of those high-tech high schools is limited. A cell phone is a computer. A cell phone, here's your cell phone. Here's your cell phone. This is a computer. A cell phone is a computer. Now, Massachusetts and a lot of other states have these specialized high schools where the kids have to be incredibly smart at math and science, and guess what? They have to be computer literate. Now, I know my own nephew went to the early engineering college in Charlotte, North Carolina. And he's graduating. I guess the graduation is another week or so, or very soon. He's just turned 18. And to get into the early engineering college, you have to be computer proficient. Well, guess what a cell phone is? It's a computer. Now, just to get into these high schools, you have to be incredibly computer proficient. A cell phone is a computer. And it's a portable computer, and it's a way for kids to learn that miniaturizing devices is incredibly important. Miniaturizing devices, whether it's your watch or whatever. If you're an astronaut in outer space, you're not going to be taking big old clunky computers to outer space. You want everything miniaturized. So a cell phone is a miniature computer. And our whole entire national defense depends on kids being plucked from the grade schools, plucked from the middle schools or junior high schools, and sent to these specialized high schools. Because our national defense depends on engineering. Our whole national defense depends on engineering. There's all these satellites in outer space. Our satellites go spy on the other countries. They come spy on us. President Trump talked about that yesterday. He said, oh, yes, oh, China spies on us, we spy on them. Big deal. But the point is the laser weapons. There's all kinds of new weapons that can be sent down from these satellites. And that makes the whole knowledge of satellites and computers so important that kids have to start early. Just the way dancers and musicians need to start early, and athletes need to start early. Kids need to start early on computers. A cell phone is a computer. For the state of Massachusetts to think of depriving children of cell phones is wrong. And I'm waiting right now because my nephew applied for the United States Naval Academy, which has one of the best engineering schools. Maybe MIT in Boston is better, but the United States Naval Academy comes in very, very close as one of the best engineering schools in the United States of America. And he applied there, and he went to the summer camp at the U.S. Naval Academy last summer, where they teach them the underwater swimming, and he co-piloted a helicopter. He was 17 last summer. And then your United States congressperson has to nominate you for the U.S. Naval Academy because it's so specialized. So U.S. Congressman Tim Moore in North Carolina nominated my nephew, and then he had to go over, to see some panel. And he came in, he didn't get it picked as a first draft pick, but he's on the waiting list. Now, the first draft picks were picked before the war in Iran started. So the waiting list is very important because a lot of the first draft kids who want to go to the 4-year engineering college won't be, they'll change their mind. The war in Iran started after they were picked, and a lot of them may change their mind. So he's on the waiting list to see if he'll get in. And the good thing about it is He's got another college lined up in North Carolina, University in North Carolina, where one of the recent astronauts graduated from. So he's excited about that. He's excited about going that to university where one of our recent astronauts graduated from. But the difference is if he goes to the University in North Carolina, he's got to work a part-time job. He's got to pay his way through because my brother, his father, got dumped from his job at a bank in North Carolina was given to some guy in India, which is one of our big problems, jobs being given away to foreigners. So his father, my brother, lost his job and he's a Mr. Mom now, staying at home while his wife works full time. And so my nephew's going to have to work his way through college, but if he can get into the U.S. Naval Academy, um, then they pay for everything. They pay for room and board and tuition. They even give the kids a salary. It's like the best, 4-year engineering deal a kid can get. So that's all I have to say about cell phones for the people in Massachusetts who are fighting to keep the right of kids to have cell phones, kids under 14.
Thank you so much. And that's a great analogy that you made in terms of athletes and getting them to the Olympics. I believe it was last year I went to Washington D.C. and I saw the Air and Space Museum, and you come to learn that many of the NASA astronauts that got us to the moon were all like 20 in late 20s, early 30s. They didn't get started in math. They didn't see a math textbook for the first time in high school. A lot of these kids developed an interest in math very early on and began, doing their due diligence and getting interested in studying. It's the same thing as anything. You do start young because you build up those skills from that point. So that is a great point, and I'm glad you brought that up. And now I do want to go into something that you brought up about the tax revolts. The first thing that you brought up. Uh, a few things I want to hit, but that's the first thing I wanted to hit. Uh,
Oh, and the marijuana. Well, let me interrupt again. I'm sorry, I'm such an interrupter. Um, on the marijuana, all the Republicans are basically the ones getting in the way of legalizing fully and completely legalizing marijuana. And a lot of the Republicans claim to be religious. But if you look at the Old Testament Holy Bible, Genesis 1, verse 29 clearly states God Almighty, gave us every seed bearing plant. So all the Republicans who say they're religious are a bunch of hypocrites. Let's make marijuana 100% legal and let's tax it. Let's get that money for programs for people. People need a lot of programs. They need housing, they need food stamps, they need education. People need programs.
Thank you, Chris. And actually, since you brought up the marijuana, let's jump into that really quick because we formally became acquainted with one another through the Legal Marijuana Now Party, through Dennis of the Legal Marijuana Now Party. So,
Yes.
how did you get involved with marijuana advocacy? How did you get involved with them? And how deep did that drive you to develop your positions further, or just further, drive home the point? Because correct me if I'm wrong, but according to Wikipedia, at least, you have ran under the label of legal marijuana or the U.S. Marijuana Party before.
Yes. Now, my husband died in 1995 of cancer, leaving me devastated emotionally and financially and, in every way. And I started learning about the marijuana movement, and it wasn't legal then in 1995. So eventually I started joining Yahoo groups, and then I met Denny Lane, who was with, I think, the Grassroots Party in Massachusetts, and he wanted to legalize marijuana. And at some point, my mother said to me, why don't you run for political office? I said, well, okay, I'll figure out how to do that. So I called up the Secretary of State in Vermont. How do you run for political office? Well, you go out and get petition signatures. And it's so many petition signatures for this office and so many petition signatures for that office. And at the time, this was before I got arthritic, I could still walk. And I lived in downtown Burlington then. And so I just walked up and down the streets of downtown Burlington and got petition signatures. And in no time at all, I was on the ballot for governor of Vermont. So in 2002, I ran for governor in Vermont. There were 10 candidates, and I came in fourth out of 10 candidates in my first political run, which I thought was pretty good. Now, I was on the ballot for the Make Marijuana Legal Party. And in the state of Massachusetts, they have a political designation they call the 3-word rule. So if you're an independent, at the top of your petition, there's a space where you can write in your political designation, whatever you want to be on the ballot, up to 3 words. So I wrote in make marijuana legal. And then after that, I ran as the Marijuana Party and the United States Marijuana Party. Every 2 years, I was on the ballot for different offices, for U.S. Congress, for U.S. Senator, for governor. One year, I ran on the Progressive Party, and I won the primary for at least 4 different offices. And for one of them, for auditor of accounts. Auditor of accounts, where I just talked all about the tax laws, and we got some really bad financial laws, to do with taxes and everything. For that office, for auditor of accounts, I think it was a 2020 for the Progressive Party, I got at least 13% of the vote statewide, which is pretty good. So in 2022, I was excluded from every single candidate debate because I had done so well in 2020. The big guys, in the big money parties, the Democrats and Republicans, were starting to get pretty scared of me getting votes. So in 2022, I was excluded from all the candidate debates. I filed a complaint with the Federal Election Commission. They didn't even bother to rule on my complaint till 2025, and they basically dismissed it. So I figured, they're probably on the take too. They're probably a little corrupt. So at that point in 2024, I'd come down with arthritis. I don't know if you can see it. I'm going to try to show you. Can you see how one finger is bent?
I can, just a little bit.
Okay. All right. So they took x-rays of my knees, and I have bilateral arthritis of the knees. So I'm not steady walking. I'm not stable. And where I used to get petition signatures, now that I live in southern Vermont, I live in southern Vermont now, and I used to get petition signatures at recycling at the town dump. But at the town dump at recycling, you have to be really quick on your feet because cars are coming in and out. And because the population is so low here, I live in a small town, little tiny town population, 3,000. Most of them are Democrats. To find the independent candidates, I've got to go to recycling to the town dump. But you have to be really quick on your feet because people are coming out, in and out, driving in and out with their trash. And I can't do that with arthritis. So I need volunteers. I need volunteers to help me get petition signatures to get on the ballot this time. Now, the interesting thing is, like I said, in the state of Vermont, if you're an independent, you can write in up to 1 to 3 descriptive words. So I could put either United States Pirate or just the Pirate Party on the election ballot this year in Vermont. But I need volunteers. And Massachusetts is right next to Vermont. People could come over. All I would need is 20 people, 20 volunteers to drive over from Massachusetts up to Vermont, find a town to hang out in for the day, and get 25 petition signatures each. 20 times 25 is 500 petition signatures. That's all I need to put the Pirate Party on the official election ballot in Vermont this year.
Thank you, Chris. And to your point, I like I said before in the description below is the Vermont Pirate I'm sorry, the VermontParty.com website where you can find the petition to print out and gather petitions that way. This is a call to any one of our supporters who are in the, I guess, the Northeast area. If you live by Vermont, if you think you can make the travel out to Vermont to help collect signatures, you do not need to be a Vermont resident to petition and collect the signatures for Chris. So, Chris, we'll
Right.
do what we can.
So when you print out the petition, go to the dollar store and get a clipboard and a black ink pen, and in the space before the asterisk party, there's an asterisk party in that space before it, write pirate.
There we go. Absolutely. And Chris, you said, I believe it was one of the first emails you sent to me. You said, "I'm arthritic, but my mind is sharp," and I can't help but agree.
Listen,
You do have a very sharp mind, and I've been very impressed with this conversation thus far. I've been and I mean this in the most endearing way possible. You almost remind me a bit of my favorite politician, Jesse Ventura. Especially when you began to.
oh, I like Jesse Ventura.
Fantastic. I'm glad. I'm glad because Jesse Ventura almost said I don't want to say verbatim, but has almost said the same thing that you did about Walmart employees, where he said you have people working at Walmart, the Waltons, who are the richest family in the United States. All of them are billionaires, and yet their employees have to get government subsidies just to live. And it entraps them and it puts them into a situation where trying to better their situation works against them. It's absolutely
It's
it's
not just that. He was a governor. Jesse Ventura was a governor, and it drains the state budget because the state has to pay part of those food stamp benefits.
Absolutely. And in the United States Pirate Party, one of the things that we absolutely always advocate for is self-determination. To be able to be in absolute control of your life and to not be hindered by, public or private entities or even yourself. Even to not be, to be free of everything, to be absolutely in control of yourself. But to be,
The benefits
absolutely
trap. The
dependent.
the benefits trap is what's stopping people, especially
Absolutely.
people, especially people who need a particular prescription. If you need some particular prescription that's incredibly expensive, but which shouldn't be because we should own the patents to the pharmaceuticals. But right now they're really expensive, and if you need a prescription like that and you lose your Medicaid, then you can't afford it. And what you make working, you can't afford to pay for your prescription. That's the benefits trap.
It's very well articulated. And I think most people understand that concept, but hardly ever can put words to it. And I think you've done a very good job of articulating what exactly is happening, which I'd be hard pressed to believe that most U.S. citizens couldn't see that for what it is. So it's important
With
to have someone like you coming up and speaking on these issues. And if Congress wasn't so afraid of you, maybe we could. We're gonna try to, put their biggest the fear of you into their hearts.
scared of a little old woman.
You know what? I guess nothing scares a liar like the truth, and the people at the top are some of the most dishonest people I've ever encountered.
That's right.
So Chris, before we got about 10 minutes left. I wanted to ask you, when you win, when you become Congresswoman Erickson, what is one of the first things you plan on doing once you actually enter into the chambers of Congress?
Get the position of Speaker of the House. Put, put, it would depend on the makeup of the Congress. Let's say this fall, okay? If if there's 50% Democrats and 50% Republicans, make the argument when there's no majority, make the argument that they're better off to have someone in the middle, an independent or a pirate candidate, in the middle to be Speaker of the House and boot out little Mikey Mouse. Get rid of little Mikey Mouse.
Mikey Mouse. I like that one. I like that plan. Jumping straight for this wanting to be speaker. And you know what? That's so admirable and it's so
Go for the
attainable.
throat.
Right. Why
Go
you know
for
what?
the throat.
Go for the throat. I like that a lot. So let me ask you then, what made you want to get involved with the Pirate Party? Because I know that the Legal Marijuana Now Party, Dennis sent us your way, but clearly there must be something about us that caught your interest.
Well, I looked at your websites because of Dennis Schuler at the Marijuana Legal Now Party. Looked at your websites and I thought, well, that sounds interesting. And they have a pirate party in Massachusetts and they're close by. hmm I need petition signatures. I need some volunteers. I wonder if I could lure some of those people from Massachusetts up here.
I think that's a pretty good plan, and I think it should be working out well for you. In fact, folks, for those of you who are watching at home, if you're happen to be watching this live at the May 16th that it is today, which by the way, folks, Chris Erickson's birthday. Happy birthday to you, Chris.
Thank you, thank you. And it's on. I was gonna go check Wikipedia because Wikipedia had me 73 years old yesterday, and I'm 74 years old today. But I got that, longevity DNA. So you get your DNA tests, and I found out I got the longevity DNA. So I'll be here till I'm 96. No one's gonna get rid of me.
Well, that's fantastic news. Thank you, Chris. Uh, and of course, happy birthday, and here's to many more. Uh,
Thank you.
and of
Oh,
course, yep. Go ahead, Chris. I'm sorry.
okay. Also, in the DNA test, I got 40% Swedish. Now, there's two kinds of Swedish. There's the farmers and the pirates, and they did a lot of research digging up pirate graves, which they identified by the artifacts in the graves, the swords and so forth, and sunken ships. They got bones, and I'm not a Swedish farmer. I'm a Viking warrior pirate. And so I figured, oh, that is perfect. They got to send me down to the U.S. Congress so I can raid the Treasury. And it was a really interesting DNA test because I got a tiny bit African, a tiny bit Native American Indian, a tiny bit East Asian, but the and a whole bunch of other European stuff. But the biggest chunk was the 40% pirate, Viking warrior pirate. Um, but the pirates traveled the world. So no wonder there's African and East Asian and all this other stuff because the pirates traveled the world.
That's true. And we always do pride ourselves on our pirate lineage. So to have a God honest descendant of the pirates, a Viking pirate warrior with us, I do appreciate it.
Yeah.
Now let me see. I feel like there was some I wanted to ask you, and it's going to come to me as I give the spiel for tomorrow. Folks, if you are watching live today, May 16th, Chris Erickson's birthday, happy birthday, Chris. Tomorrow, May 17th, will be the Pirate National Committee meeting. We hold those every 2 weeks, live streamed on the YouTube, and tomorrow Chris will be joining us to officially ask and hopefully, I assume, sounds like a sure thing, receive the endorsement of the United States Pirate Party. To which,
Oh,
should
I
it
hope
be?
so.
Well, I don't want to speak on behalf of my party, but the captain likes
I
yes.
know, I know, I know. I've watched your videos. They all have to vote, and some vote up and some vote down on different things. But hopefully, they'll agree with my positions and agree that I should be nominated by them to join you all. And I sent you one video of Dorset Quarry in Dorset, Vermont. And so what I wanted to suggest, if they like me, if the Pirate Party people vote that they like me, I want to suggest to the people in Massachusetts, look online of videos of Dorset Quarry. The place is packed with kids. Most of them are voting age. I think most of them are around 18. I know my niece and nephew go there when they visit up from North Carolina. And Dorset Quarry is packed with kids. So it's one place to collect petition signatures.
Fantastic, and I'll make sure to share that around with that. I'll share that information with pirates. Obviously, I'm going to be sharing this information with everyone I can, and the YouTube video. This interview is going to be shared around. It's already going live as we speak, but it will be shared properly with everyone that I believe should see it, which is everyone in the party.
Okay,
So
and one more thing you might want to point out to people who live in states, whether it's New York, New Hampshire, Maine, Massachusetts, anybody that wants to help out to get me on the ballot and get Vermont on the ballot for the Pirate Party, is if Burlington, Vermont is the largest city in Vermont, there's a city campground called North Beach Campground, but you have to make reservations right away because it's the most popular campground in Vermont. You can walk to the city of Burlington from the campground. It's on the shores of Lake Champlain. There's a bike path. You can ride your bicycle up and down the bike path and collect petition signatures. You can walk into downtown Burlington, Vermont and collect petition signatures. But if you want to get into the North Beach campground, you got to make reservations right away.
thank you, Chris, and thank you so much. We are gonna try. We're gonna do our best for you because I think endorsement or not, and believe me, I don't think that not is a possibility. But we're gonna be helping you as much as we can. I would like to continue on and make sure that this campaign is the most successful thus far, and we're gonna strike the fear of Chris Ericson into the hearts of all our congressmen. Now, Chris, as we are wrapping up, we got about 2 to 3 minutes left. I just wanted to once again give you the floor, and if there's any closing statements or closing remarks that you wanted to make, the floor is yours. But otherwise, folks, if you have enjoyed what you see so far, and maybe you're seeing this after the live stream, and you said, "Oh, I wish I could have asked Chris some questions," Chris will be joining
Oh,
us
there's
tomorrow. So if
oh,
you do have any questions, bring them, and we'll be watching the YouTube chat tomorrow and making sure that if you do have any questions for Chris, we'll be happy to relay them. But Chris, with the last 2 minutes, was there anything you wanted to close on?
yes, I want to say I'm horrified every time I hear about President Trump and his gang, Pete Hesketh and the horrible gang, bombing fishing boats under the guise of, oh, they must be, drug traffickers. I went to Pleon's Junior Yacht Club in Marblehead, Massachusetts when I was a kid to learn how to sail. And at some point, before I got married, I was I got a job as a crew on a fishing catch, a 48-foot fishing catch. And I've done thousands of miles out in the ocean. Once you go out over 200 miles, you're out in international waters. So you go with the captain of the ship to some government office because you got to sign out of the United States because you're going out into international waters. And because it was a 48-foot fishing catch, and I've sailed literally thousands of miles. Um, I'm horrified every time Pete Hesketh and Donald Trump are bombing these fishing boats under the guise that they're drug traffickers. It breaks my heart.
It's well said, and I agree. I think it's terrible what they're doing, and I think it only serves to weaken the relationship the United States has to build with our neighbors, not only in the Americas, but all across the world. For us to violate international law the way that we do, and then just the killing of people without a trial. The killing of people, period, should be an issue, but these people are being, we're playing judge, jury, executioner on fishing boats claiming they're narco terrorists, and where's the trial? Where's the proof? We don't even have the drugs
It's
to
like
pull
it's
out the
like
ocean to prove it. It's
it's like
it's
it's like it's like lynch mobs back in the day when they lynched black guys just because they were black.
it's 100% right, and it's tragic. And once this administration is gone, we can never go back. And that doesn't just mean let's
get Democrats in power. Folks, if you're watching this, then you've come to the conclusion that it's the Democrats and the Republicans. Neither of us are going to get us out of this situation. So, folks, vote independent, vote minor party. You have an opportunity, if you live in Vermont, to vote for Chris Ericson. Folks, this has been Talk the Plank. This has been Chris Ericson. Chris, I'm looking forward to having you join us tomorrow, and I'm looking forward to the endorsement process. Folks, my name is Jolly Mitch DeVillo, captain of the United States Pirate Party. Vote pirate, and victory is ours.